Hey writers, it's Megan coming at you live in All Writers Welcome. And today, my plan is to take some of your questions. So if you are working on something and you're stuck, you want to ask a question, you want to get some feedback, you want to bounce an idea off of someone, I'm inviting you to put your question in the comments and I will do my best to get you moving forward. All right, so while you're thinking, ooh, what would I like to ask Megan? What would I like to ask a writing coach? I'm going to also cover some content, and this might spark some ideas for you. And what I'm going to talk about are 5 mistakes to make sure you avoid when you are writing dialogue. So I'm going to take you through those mistakes, and you can think of your questions. You can put them in the comment bar and I will get to them. Okay, so dialogue. Ooh, it feels so sexy. I think a lot of people are drawn to write full-length novels as opposed to short stories or other forms of writing because you get to use dialogue. It feels fun and exciting, and when done right, it adds a lot to a story. And when done with mistakes, it can really jolt readers out of your story. It can mess with your pacing. So it's not that it's really difficult to write good dialogue, but there definitely are a few things you need to be on the lookout for. And so that's why I'm doing these 5 mistakes. And I'm going to do them counting down in the order of what I think is not as bad to pretty darn bad. So, all right, the number 5 mistake that you can make with your dialogue is confusing readers. We don't know who's talking and we don't know the tone. And that can be solved really simply by using tags or explanatory notes, whatever you like to call them, who is saying what and also in what way. So if you give us those tags, then we'll definitely be able to follow you. We won't have the confusion factor. And if you branch out from says or said, then you're going to go a long way toward giving us the tone. You can tell us somebody yelled or replied or retorted or, snidely said out of the corner of her mouth. All right, so that will help you with making it clear who's doing what and also in what tone. The number 4 mistake that makes dialogue take away from your story instead of add to it is trying too hard with your dialogue, trying to be funny, trying to be clever, trying to be sexy, trying to be scary. Because readers can spot when dialogue doesn't feel authentic to the characters. We are getting to know characters, and when they speak, we want to hear their voices. So just be aware of that. It's okay to have the intention you want this scene to be funny, but be very aware, are you writing in the way your characters would speak? Or are you wanting to get a joke in just because it's a funny joke? Be honest with yourself. Is this really how your characters would speak? So you want to leave it to them to talk as opposed to you coming in as the author and going, oh, this would be so funny or so intense. All right, the number 3 mistake people make with dialogue is simply using the dialogue to repeat what we already know from something else in the story. Over the summer, I read some cozy mysteries that were fun and they're well liked. I mean, these are definitely books that have a following, but they had a feature that I personally did not care for, and it was that you would see a scene unfold and then a character would get on the phone and relate exactly the same information to somebody not there. And I think it is definitely part of that author's style, and people enjoy the kind of the hominess to it. But I'm reading that and I'm going, oh my gosh, this is just rehashing exactly what happened in the previous scene, and it definitely does not do it for me. So be on the lookout for that. Is your dialogue adding something, or is it just retelling? So, okay, let me pause for a minute and just send out the invitation for anybody who may have started watching. I'm taking you through 5 avoidable mistakes with dialogue, and I'm also asking you for your writing questions. Is there something that you would like some feedback on? You would like to bounce some ideas off of me? What would you like to ask a writing coach? So feel free to put your comments or your questions in the comment bar and I will get to them. Okay, so that was 5, 4, and 3. The number 2 mistake, getting down to some of the more terrible mistakes that people make with dialogue that really can take your story off track. The number 2 would be interrupting an exciting moment or interrupting the pace or flow of your story with dialogue. Not everything needs to be shown in your book. Some things you will tell us, some things you will fast forward through, or you'll draw conclusions for us. You as the author will tell us what's going on instead of needing to show us. And if your dialogue is coming in a place where there's a lot of tension or a lot of momentum and a lot of forward motion, it can actually stop things dead in its tracks, because it does take a little bit longer for us to hear about what's going on if you're showing us than if you're telling us. So this is kind of counterintuitive. You might think, oh, the more I show, the more exciting it is for my reader. But if you have really good pacing and forward momentum and things are just going, and we went to this place and we're going that place, and now we know all the stuff's unfolding, and then things just pause and there's a conversation and we're now stuck in this longer moment, it can really take your pacing off track, which of course interrupts the great experience for readers. All right. And the number 1 mistake that authors make with dialogue that really just takes readers out of the story and ruins the experience is not imbuing the dialogue with anything deep about the characters or the relationships. If it's just a conversation, we don't need to hear it, right? That's something that can be summed up or referred back to, or, like, oh, but I thought you told me Joe was getting divorced, right? You could just simple refer back in dialogue that's necessary to dialogue that's not necessary. You don't have to have the first initial conversation back and forth about Joe getting the divorce. Because the point of dialogue is for you to reveal who your characters are and what their relationships are. That's why we love dialogue so much. That's why it's so satisfying for readers to get to hear the conversation firsthand, because we then get to be the ones who decide. We're listening to Joe and Mary go back and forth, and we're paying attention to Joe's word use, and we're paying attention to Mary's tags and like her facial expressions, and she keeps talking and sighing or whatever it is. And we're like, ooh, there's trouble brewing. And that's really like the raison d'etre of dialogue. It's for you to show us your characters and their relationships. So this number 1 mistake of not giving your dialogue more than just what's on the surface also leads to some really powerful to-do advice about dialogue, which is anytime you're writing it, to think, what can I show about the characters who are in the scene? What can I show about the way they think about themselves, about the topic, about one another? How can I make this experience really rich for readers? Okay, so I'm going to recap the 5 mistakes. I'm not seeing any comments so far. I want to just throw that out there. If there's something that you want to ask about, invite you to do it. We come live into the group because we want to offer you tips about writing and marketing, but also we're here, we're live. Like, you have access to a writing coach and a marketing coach. So if you have questions that are, on the surface of your brain, you want to let us know, you should definitely do that. Okay. But the 5 mistakes I just went you through were number 5, confusing readers. We don't know who's talking, or we don't know the tone. Very simple to correct. You just tell us who's talking and you tell us the tone. Number 4 is trying as the author to use the dialogue for your own purposes. Like, oh, I've got this really funny or clever thing to say and I want to put it in. But if it doesn't feel authentic to what the characters would say, readers are going to tune out and they're going to miss your great joke. You're better off getting that in some other way so they can actually appreciate it. Number 3 was when the dialogue just repeats or retells something that we already know, bores readers, just skip over it. You don't have to show everything in your writing. There are some things you're just going to tell us and we'll move on and we're good. We know them. The number 2 mistake was bringing in dialogue in a place where it doesn't work pacing wise, where it interrupts the momentum or the flow or the action sequence or the drama or the tension that's building. And again, this often comes from authors thinking they have to show. You don't have to show us everything. You're allowed to tell and tell and tell, and sometimes that builds the momentum better. And the number 1 mistake is staying on the surface and not using your dialogue to tell us more about the characters and who they are and really show us how they react to things. Oh, good, Joshua, I'm glad to hear that these tips were helpful. Yeah, I think writing dialogue is really fun, and I'll share with you guys one of, I think, the best activities ever. Grab a friend you've been talking to your story about, so somebody who's kind of knows what's going on, and you've been like, oh, here's what's happening in my plot. Grab a writing buddy like that. Could be somebody you know in person in real life. It could be somebody you hang out with online, somebody you're in a critique group with. Open a Google Doc, because you guys can both live edit at the same time, and say, okay, I'm going to be Joe, you be Mary, and start typing back and forth with each other. It is so much fun. And you're going to learn something about your character either way. And you might go, but the other person doesn't know my characters. It's totally fine, because here's something that happens. I do this with my writing coaching clients. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to be so-and-so and you be your protagonist. And we'll get the conversation going. And very often I will type something and my client will say, oh no, that's definitely not how Mary would talk. And I go, fantastic. You just learned something about Mary. Why? How would she say it differently and why? And so it gives you that insight into character. So you might get great ideas. Maybe your writing buddy will, write something, you go, oh yeah, that's brilliant. Can I use that? Or you will get the experience of saying, no, it's not that. Oh, so let me think, why not that? And it helps you with this. Oh, Tiggs is saying examples would really help. That's a great idea. You're thinking examples of dialogue. Ooh, okay. I will do some thinking about that, how we can get you some fun examples. Sounds like a resource is in order. So Tiggs, I'll make sure to tag you when we get that up. I'm imagining you'll do a resource with some examples of dialogues, what to do and what not to do. And that's something that you'll be able to get on our website. So I will definitely let you know when that's up. Thank you. Love that suggestion. All right, y'all, I am not seeing questions. So I don't know, you're shy or everybody is just writing smoothly and it's all going wonderfully. But guess what? You can always add questions to the Facebook, and we often use people's questions to determine the live topic that we'll be doing. So put your questions in at any time. You can tag me, you can tag Ella if it's a marketing question or a mindset question. We really do want to hear from y'all. All right, if you found this video helpful, please like it and share it. We greatly appreciate that. And again, if you have writing questions, you can always put them in the group and we will get back to you, and you might even get a live video response answer to your question. So have a fantastic, wonderful day, everybody. And I wish you happy and productive writing. Take care.